Hailing from North Carolina, Imam Sykes was a lay speaker preparing for a life of Christian ministry. He left the church for a time of reflection and spent 6 years in South Africa, working to end apartheid. A self-realization and personal actualization trainer, he entertained all race groups in the same classroom. In 1987, he embraced Islam, completed his undergraduate degree in psychology at the University of North Carolina with honors. He served 3 internships at Oaks Psychiatric Hospital and devoted 3 years as a guardian ad litem, advocating for abused children. In 1998, he was the host of The Islamic Message, a series of 50 television shows. He served for 11 years in the North Carolina Department of Corrections and has retired after that from the Federal Bureau of Prisons as a chaplain advocating for the rights of least restrictive religious practice for the incarcerated. There, he facilitated the practice with approximately 23 faith groups. Celebrating diversity, he strives to build bridges of peace, dialogue, and understanding, whereby all men and women who serve the living God come together on common ground in the pursuit of peace, freedom, and justice for all. He completed his Master of Social Work and a graduate certificate in marriage and family at the University of Central Florida. He has been a psychotherapist for many years and continues his practice. We welcome you back.
Good morning. Good morning. Before we begin today, I'd like to clarify something very important. Because precision matters in interfaith conversations. When we speak of the early roots of Unitarianism, we are referring to Christian movements. In fact, particularly in the early centuries and during the Radical Reformation in the 16th century, that emphasized divine unity and resisted Trinitarian theology. Modern Unitarian Universalism, however, is much broader. It is not creedal. It includes theists, atheists, Christians, humanists, and seekers of many kind. So today we are exploring 2 layers. The theological resonance between early Unitarian Christianity and Islam, and the ethical resonance between modern Unitarian Universalism and Islam. That's a lot to do in 20 minutes. They are not identical comparisons, as we could easily see. And I promise no one will be quizzed at the end. But both point towards something very deep, something deeper, a longing. We live in pieces. We live in a fractured age, political polarization, heated exchanges around elections, policy debates, or court decisions. People unfriending or blocking each other over a political post. Entire conversations collapsing into us versus them within minutes. This week, somewhere in our country, 2 people stopped speaking, not because they stopped caring, but because they stopped feeling safe enough to be heard. Religious suspicion. Ongoing tensions and rhetoric surrounding global conflicts, especially Muslims, Jews, and Christians. Misrepresentation of religious beliefs in media or online clips taken out of context. People feeling they must defend their entire faith because of one headline. I have to do this on a daily basis. This week, someone walked into a room and felt they had to explain their entire faith before they could even introduce themselves. Identity fragmentation. People expressing confusion or distrust about identity, religious, cultural, gender, or social. Online spaces encouraging people to define themselves in increasingly narrow or oppositional ways, sort of borderline. It's all love or all hate, all right, all wrong. The quiet exhaustion of trying to belong in multiple worlds. I thought to have people raise their hand, but then some of us have arthritis in our elbows, and you wouldn't have enjoyed the service. This week, somebody scrolled for hours trying to find themselves in pieces of other people's certainty. If you've spent 5 minutes online this week, you already know you didn't just see disagreement. You felt how quickly disagreement becomes dehumanization. Viral outrage cycles, one clip, one quote, one moment, taken as the whole truth. Comment sections where empathy disappears instantly. Algorithms amplifying conflict because conflict keeps people's attention. Families divided, communities tense. Holiday or dinner table conversations avoided or either erupting. Friends walking on eggshells to avoid triggering conflict. Mosque, churches, or community spaces quietly navigating internal differences. This week, a family sat at the same table but lived in completely different realities. And when the world feels fractured, voices across history keep whispering the same word. The divine must remain one. In the 4th century, Arius argued that God must remain absolutely one. Centuries later, Michael Servetus resisted imposed Trinitarian formulations and was executed for it. Because unity can be as threatening as it is sacred. These moments developed independently of Islam, but they reveal something recurring in Christian history. A recurring impulse to preserve the oneness of the divine against formulations they experienced as division. In the Qur'an, Islam proclaims, Qul hu Allahu ahad. Say, God is God. God is one. For Muslims, this is not in the fine print. It is the very foundation. And here is the ethical shift. If there is only one ultimate authority, then no empire is sacred, no race is superior, no tribe owns truth. Unity dismantles supremacy because nothing created can stand next to the one. Let me share something brief. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was once sitting with his companions, and a funeral procession passed by, and he stood. Someone said to him, "That's a Jewish funeral." And he replied, "Was it not a human soul?" In that moment, theology became dignity. Not agreement, not sameness, but recognition that every human being carries something sacred. And that standing was a refusal to let difference erase dignity. And in a world like ours, that kind of standing might be one of the most radical things we can do. Now we move from theology to ethics. The first UU principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Interestingly enough, the Qur'an says that God honored the children of Adam. It doesn't say if they were Muslim. It says all of them. The Qur'an also commands in Surah 4, verse 135, stand firmly for justice, even if against yourself. This is morally demanding, but spiritually transformative. The seventh UU principle speaks to interdependence. The Qur'an describes humanity as stewards, caretakers of a fragile earth. We call those environmentalists. Unity of God implies unity of creation. And whether one uses theological language or not, we belong to one another. We all came from the same pair. And with that, unity is not sameness. It is shared origin. We do not need to be identical to be connected. Otherwise, my wife and I wouldn't have been married 40 years. Now let us move inward for a moment. Fragmentation is not only social, it is psychological. A fragmented soul will always create a fragmented world. Hurt people hurt people. And an integrated soul begins to heal. And here I want to share something very personal. When I embraced Islam in 1987, I was stepping into a tradition that proclaims unapologetically that God is one. But internally, I was not. I was fragmented, confused, and slowly, Tawheed slowly became more than doctrine. It became a way of recognizing my inner world. It became invitation. If God is one, perhaps my life does not need to be divided into compartments. What if unity is also healing? When something partial becomes ultimate, race, nation, ideology, ego, division intensifies. Because division begins when something temporary pretends to be ultimate. Unity restores proportion. Early Unitarians resisted imposed creeds. Islam rejected priestly intermediaries. Unitarian Universalism affirms a free and responsible search for truth. The Qur'an repeatedly asks, will you not reflect? Will you not ponder? Will you not reason? Will you not contemplate? You see, faith at its best does not silence conscience. It refines it. The longing for unity may be, in fact, the deepest ground we share. So let us be clear. Islam and Unitarian Universalism are not the same. Surprise. And yet, across centuries, across cultures, across languages, the call to unity keeps running. And I can think of no time in my 67 years that we need unity more than we do today. One God, one humanity, one moral ground. But here is the deeper question. Not whether we agree, but whether we remember what is ultimate. Because when we forget what is ultimate, we begin to treat each other as temporary. And when we remember, we soften, we make room, we begin to heal. Unitarian Universalists are real good at this, creating the space for this, softening, making room for others. Perhaps the longing for unity is written into the human heart. And perhaps in a fractured world, remembering that we belong to one another is not merely theology. It is survival. Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you today.